evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Education and Training Committee of CPM, let me welcome you to this second session in the series of evening presentation series, Evening for Managers, conducted by CPM. Today's theme is Planning versus Executing. What is your call? Let me briefly introduce you to CPM. The Institute of Certified Professional Managers was formed to provide professional qualifications in management by conducting educational programs, providing practical experience in private and public sector entities, whilst establishing a link between these same sectors for the advancement of professional management. CPM is a joint project initiated by CMA Sri Lanka and the All India Management Association. Recognized internationally, it is an active member of the Association of Management Development Institutions in South Asia. CPM has signed an MOU with the Malaysian Institute of Management to facilitate professional development, knowledge exchange, capacity building in order to develop competent management professionals in Sri Lanka. As you know, this session is organized by the CPM Education and Training Committee, where their goals are in defining the professional and educational needs of the membership, assuring compliance with the CPM requirements, creating continuing professional development sessions, and assessing how well CPM manages this. So let me invite Professor Lakshman R. Vatavala, the President of CPM, to do the welcome address.
Reverend Metta Vihari, members of the Council, members of CPM, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure on behalf of the Institute of Certified Professional Managers to welcome you this evening to this presentation on planning versus executing. What is your call? I must first of all congratulate the Education and Training Committee for making all the effort in putting together these evening seminars. This is an area where members of CPM can get together and have fellowship so that they will be able to not only meet with the other members but also to exchange ideas which will help them in their various business matters. I think a short introduction was made about the Institute of Certified Professional Managers. We are very happy that you have joined CPM as members. And in addition to the various evening presentations and the seminars that we conduct, last year we had a workshop or a conference that we organized with the Association of Management Development Institutions in South Asia. So we would like all of you all to attend these events because this will really enrich the management and business skills of our members. We do hope to expand our activities, and one of the areas that we need to go into is the postgraduate qualification of our members. You all know that we have just introduced the continuing professional development programs and also a code of ethics which was run at the annual general meeting that was held recently. Unfortunately, I did not see such a large number present at the annual general meeting, But certainly a lot of valuable things happen at this meeting. As I said, the continuing professional development program and the code of ethics. I think that too was done by the members of the education and training committee. So I must thank them for the effort that they are putting in to develop our own membership. Code of ethics of importance to us. Today you know that the government has given quite a lot of emphasis on good governance. So definitely all our members should go through the code of ethics and also practice it. I think it is available on the website so that you will be able to download it and make use of it. In the event if you need to get a soft copy, you could contact our director or executive, Mr. Dilshan, who will be able to help you in this regard. These are some of the introductory remarks, but I will also like you all to sponsor your friends and colleagues in your business organizations and also those who are known to you to become members of our institute. I think today there are some members who are some who are present here who are not members of CPM, so they will be able to get the details and also join and become members, because I am sure this will greatly benefit all of you. Going on to the topic that is there, planning versus executing, what is your call? Now this I think is a very important topic that have been selected by the education and training committee, and I must congratulate them for selecting such a useful topic. Now this is really useful not only to those of you who are in the private sector or in business, but also those who are in government, because we may have read in newspapers, or maybe if you see the political campaigns, various political parties will have their plans for the development of the country. They will also criticize the people in power, and new plans are put in to benefit the people. But unfortunately, in most of these cases, either things are very slow or things are not done because they are not executed properly. Even in your own business organizations, you will find that strategic plans are drawn up maybe by high-powered teams. But unfortunately, when it comes to execution, they will not keep to the time targets that have been decided upon. As a result of which, there will be a lot of cost overruns, and the company is incurring additional expenditure. So planning is useful, but it has to be also carried out with proper execution. I was just looking at some of the literature available on the planning versus executing, and they had plotted on a 2x2 grid the plan on one side and the execution on the other side. So they had a bad plan, they had a good plan on the other side, and the good execution and bad execution on the other side. They found that 4% had good plans and good execution. So you can see that only 4% had good plans and good execution. 8% had bad plans and bad execution. 13% had bad plans and good execution, and the majority, 74%, had good plans and bad execution. I am sure if you really look at what you all are doing today, this would be the case. So if you really look at the execution part, it is really people who are involved in execution. But if these people were not involved in the planning stage, you will definitely find that the plan may not succeed, or they might pull in different directions. So I am sure the presentation that would be made by Mr. Darshana Amarasinghe, who is the Assistant General Manager Marketing of the Union Assurance, will have much more to give you. But I was just trying to give you the importance of these areas. Even in your own organizations, strategic plans may be set up by your managing directors and the senior managers. When it comes to execution, it will be the people who are lower down. In most cases, monitoring and follow-up may also not happen. So we have to ensure that if we are to succeed, then we need to have a good plan and good execution. So I do hope that by the end of this presentation that we are having today, that you will be able to get a good idea as to what has to be done. And this is the sort of thing that we are really trying to develop. We would like to get your suggestions as to what sort of topics that you would like to discuss. You certainly can maybe write on a piece of paper, or maybe inform us of what you think is important in your workplace, because we need to make it a practical exercise. If we really depend only on theory, we will never succeed. So today we need people who are more practical, who can make things work. Even if you look at, you may have the best person from Harvard University coming and then giving a good lecture, but you may have people like President Premadas, who may not have had that same sort of education, but a man who really drove the nation, who was able to feel the pulse of the people and to give them what they need. So that is really essential if we are able to succeed. So let me once again thank all of you for coming this evening, and we do hope that we will be able to continue these meetings and to make CPM more active, and also to get into the education area, especially on the post-qualifying, that is for our membership to get at least a postgraduate diploma, which we are now talking of, or maybe on a postgraduate certificate level, which will help you to develop your academic area, and also which will give a more practical bias in this training. So thank you very much, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Professor Vatavada, for those words of wisdom. Now it's time to introduce the most important person of today's event. Well, of course, for the most important session. Let me introduce Mr. Darshana Amarasinghe, who is a chartered marketeer of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, UK. He pursued higher studies in training and human resource development from the Institute of Personnel Management, Sri Lanka, He is also a certified trainer from Limra, USA, and he has also studied strategic management at Harvard BP. Mr. Amarasinghe is also a member of Sri Lanka Institute of Marketing, Sri Lanka Institute of Training and Development, and the Institute of Management. He has held many key positions in his career and brings together over 24 years of experience in the fields of sales, marketing, training, and human resource development, which also includes a 2-year stint in general management at Agrani Insurance, Bangladesh. Currently, he works as the Assistant General Manager Marketing and Life Distribution at Union Assurance PLC. He also does visiting lectures, and interestingly, he designs, develops, and conducts management skill development workshops for many leading organizations. So over to you, Mr. Amarasinghe.
Good evening to all of you. And in Sri Lanka, up to the 31st of January, you're wishing people for the new year, provided that you have not met them and wished them before. So today happens to be the 20th, and I have not met most of you all before, so that permits me to wish you all the very best for the new year. And also, a few things before I start. I think I was particularly advised not to speak much on theory and to be more on practice, and that's exactly what I'll do. And also, thanks to Professor has helped me to manage time, because he has already explained one of my slides. So thank you, Professor. And also it goes on to say how important that particular slide or that model is, because both of us were able to pick up the same thing. Right, so I think there is no practice in the absence of theory. So let's just focus a little bit on what a plan is, very quickly. That's the goal, what you need to achieve. So any planning starts with the setting of a SMART goal. I'm not going to explain what SMART is, you will have heard it enough and more. Where we are now, a critical situation analysis as to where you are now, because you can't get to where you want to get to if you don't know where you are now. So critical analysis of where you are now. How do we achieve it? That part is the strategy converted into action plans. Strategies are broad, and then you actually convert it to more attainable action points. And what do you need to achieve it? And that's in terms of resourcing. That's fundamental. All of us know this, and we don't need to waste time on this. And also there's a time frame, obviously. Certain time frame, as Professor very correctly mentioned. What is execution? Now, execution is a very, very easy concept to talk about, but it's very, very hard to apply. That's why most of us get execution wrong, because the reason is fundamentally we don't pay enough emphasis to execution. This is one of the biggest problems. Execution is all about making a plan work with desirable results in a stipulated time frame. So the interesting part here is, one thing is planning is tough. It's easy to talk about it, it's tough to do it. And also it's all about making the plan work. So there is no point in beautiful plans if you really don't have results. Make it work. It provides results, and also provides results in a stipulated time frame. That's what's important. Okay, now that's what you already know. What went wrong, or what goes wrong? A plan or the execution? Now, often what happens is that the blame goes on the execution, and the plan is perfect. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One reason is that the plan belongs to the boss. Planning is done by bosses, and the executions are done by subordinates. So bosses are never wrong, and the subordinates are always wrong. That's one big problem or assumption, that plans never go wrong. So the blame is always put on the execution, because plans always belong to the bosses. And I think you have seen this before. came from the army. Rule number 1, boss is always right. And in case there is a doubt, please apply rule number 1, which is boss is always right again. You have seen this many, many, many times. Now, what I'm trying to conclude with this is that not only execution fails, plans also do fail. And unfortunately, if you don't analyze it properly, you don't know whether the plan went wrong or the execution went wrong, and the blame often goes on the execution. So one part of my presentation today would focus on looking at planning errors and how to fix it, as well as execution errors and how to fix it, and how do you actually integrate these two, which is actually very, very important. So what are the planning errors? Unrealistic goals. Some people are very, very, very ambitious with goals that they want to achieve, which are quite unrealistic. And what happens is often you lack ground level insights to see where you are now, to see what a strategy can take you. Now, of course, today you hear of disruption. This is the latest concept. You hear of disruption. So you don't worry about where you are now. Total disruption in terms of achieving something new. So you disrupt the whole system, not in a bad way, but positive disruption. But with all this, it's very, very important to get realistic goals that you can achieve. So this is one of the biggest errors in planning, and you don't realize it, unfortunately, until you go to the execution. Once you go to the execution, you realize you have set far too ambitious goals that are not realistic to be achieved. And what happens as often is that the execution team is blamed for not producing the results for a bad plan. So this is one big issue. Lack of ground level insights, wrong benchmarks. Now, often your plan is done by a consultant who is coming from Singapore. Now, his benchmarks are superb because his benchmarks are from Europe, the US, the Middle East, Africa, South Korea, developed markets where things are happening well, and your benchmarks are often brought from there. But unfortunately, this consultant lacks ground level insights of Kurunagala, Anuradhapura, Galle, where actually the plan is going to be executed. Now, this is an issue. Now, I'm not going to talk about rectifying these issues. I'll just talk about it a little, but let's go a little further and talk about the fixing of these planning issues. Now, how many of us actually bring in your execution team members into the planning process is the question mark. If you do that, you're bringing in ground level insights to the planning process, which often lacks in most of the planning. So there are two things here. One is ground level insights, and also with the lack of ground level insights, bringing benchmarks which are irrelevant to real life market conditions. I'll tell you a classical real life example which I faced last November. I was in Bangkok for an industry training program, and I represent the life insurance industry, working for Union Assurance, and this was an industry event. And you had a top guy, a consultant, speaking there about the use of latest technology, social media, which is actually the most talked about thing. So usually all these presenters start with the level of internet penetration, the level of Facebook users, the level of the number of Twitter users, and so on. And what are the benchmarks? He showed some beautiful benchmarks. How social media has been really useful in improving business. And what were the benchmarks? Travel, leisure, super areas, right? And he was blaming the insurance industry for being backward and not using social media. And he was really slandering all the industry people in his presentation, saying that the life insurance industry is way, way, way too old thinking, and they are not using the latest social media in their business strategies. Until such time, 2 presentations later, an industry specialist had the presentation. And until he revealed some facts. What did he reveal? Research. 90% of people who bought life insurance still want to buy life insurance through a physical interaction with the salesperson. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting. 90%, including the Europe, US, and most of the developed regions in this country, in the world. 90% of the people still prefer to buy life insurance from an insurance agent through a one-to-one interaction. And also, the greatest failure of an online insurance product in South Korea. Now, these are insights. These are insights. So what happens is, if you bring in benchmarks which is not in the industry, which is not relevant to the region, into your planning process, you're bound to fail. So this is why it's so important to bring in real benchmarks that are relevant, and the consultants whom you use should be guided through. Consultants are fine. They bring in a lot of value to the table. But what does the execution team do in the planning process? What is their role? Are they given room to voice their opinions? Is a critical factor. Too much gut feel in analysis. Now, this is another problem. The more and more senior managers get, the more and more they get experienced, and more they rely on gut feel rather than factual research. And gut feel is good. Gut feel is not so good sometimes, because gut feel can be wrong. I'm not saying research can't go wrong. So the ideal combination would be a good research coupled with gut feel to give the practical sense, as well as really go down and find the real life situation. So too much of gut feel in your analysis tends to give you wrong assumptions to build actually your plan. I think I'll have to remove some of these. I'll move it down. Okay. Some formatting issue with the different computer. Strategy errors or irrelevant strategy. Now, I told you about lot of execution errors, but there are a lot of strategy errors as well. Wrong strategy or irrelevant strategy. So basically, you probably got your first pointer was about the goals. So probably you got your goals right, but you got your strategy wrong. Means you know where you want to go, but how to get there probably is not the idea. This is one of the biggest problems. Most managers are very lavish with plans, but very stingy with resourcing. It's a common thing that is seen in many, many organizations. It's hard to say whether strategy comes or resources comes first. Time to time it will differ, but there are two schools of thoughts for it. One school of thought is do your strategies based on what you have. That's one school of thought, and it's not bad. You might not have the sun and the moon, but you plan your strategies with what you have. The second thought is resource the idea. That's the second school of thought. So that the best ideas won't get thrown out of the window. So you work backwards. You work backward with your resources. You start with that idea and see how much of resource, how big is this idea, and how much of resources do I put into it. That's another way of looking at it. So companies like 3M adopt that approach. That's why they are able to come up with most brilliant ideas. One of the most innovative companies in the world, until of course Apple came in. Their success story is about working backwards with their resources. So they look at what the idea is the idea good, then they decide how much of resourcing should go into that. Two schools of thoughts, but resourcing is important. Whether you do the plans based on your resource or you backward resource it, it doesn't matter, but resourcing does keep important. Non-practical time frames. Again, managers are very impatient about results once they do the plan. So if you don't work out proper time frames, the other thing to fail is probably your results are coming, but the results are coming a little late. Could be execution problem because the results are coming late, or it could be a planning problem, it's just that you got your time frames wrong. So these are some of the planning errors which often is blamed on execution. And if you don't get this right, you will not know where the problem is, even if you want to fix it later.